It was a humid afternoon in Lagos, Nigeria. The kind of day when the air sticks to your skin and everything moves just a little slower. On July 19, 2025, the city bustled under a heavy sun. Street vendors lined the roads. Children played barefoot in narrow alleyways, and the air buzzed with the distant roar of motorcycles. The honk of Danfo buses and the overhead hum of aircraft approaching Murtala Muhammed International Airport. Among them was a scheduled commercial flight, nearing its final descent. But what should have been an ordinary landing ended in disaster. Within moments, peace turned to panic. A large passenger aircraft overran the runway, tore through the airport fencing, plowed straight into a nearby urban slum, a densely packed community known for its makeshift homes, paved paths, and teeming life. The crash didn't just take lives, shattered families, leveled homes, and ignited questions that stretched far beyond aviation. This is not just a story about a crash. This is about the cost of oversight, the silence of systems, and the resilience of those left behind. At exactly 3:41 p.m. local time, Flight ND-127, a twin-engine medium-haul jet operated by Nigeria Direct Airways, radioed the Lagos control tower. They were on approach from Abuja with 78 passengers and 6 crew members. On board, the aircraft, a 20-year-old Embraer E190, had experienced heavy rainfall en route and was instructed to circle the airport before landing. After 2 loops, the flight was cleared for final approach to runway 18L. Witnesses near the airport reported hearing the plane coming in low and fast. A local taxi driver waiting outside the arrivals terminal said, "I knew something was wrong. It was not like other landings. The rain had made the tarmac slick. Crosswinds persisted." Still, the pilots attempted to land. According to preliminary data, the aircraft touched down 1,200 meters into the 2,700-meter runway, far deeper than standard. The reverse thrusters failed to engage. Skidding uncontrollably, the plane veered left, broke through the end barriers, crushed a perimeter wall, and entered the densely inhabited Okota slum. The aircraft, still carrying momentum, tore through corrugated roofs and wooden walls. The front fuselage smashed into a row of homes, places where families cooked, slept, and raised children. An explosion followed, not massive, but enough to set fire to debris and fuel.
Our residents
were thrown into chaos. In a neighborhood with narrow lanes and no formal emergency exits, screams echoed. Children scattered, and smoke began to rise. A mother named Fatakemi, who survived the crash, later told reporters, "I thought it was an earthquake. Then I saw the wing inside our home." For nearly 10 minutes, there was no response. Locals ran with buckets of water. Others pulled bodies from rubble with bare hands. Some screamed for help that felt slow to arrive. When fire services reached the scene, the aircraft was partially embedded in what had once been a block of residential homes. Flames licked at nearby structures. Families stood in the open, injured, confused, grieving. The final toll was heartbreaking. 49 passengers died on impact or in the fire. 3 crew members perished, including the captain and first officer, but it was not just those on board. On the ground, 19 slum residents lost their lives, among them 8 children and an elderly man who ran a roadside kiosk. Over 50 more were injured, many critically. Hospitals overflowed. Makeshift triage centers were set up in schoolyards. The government declared a state of local emergency. But as condolence messages poured in, so did the questions. Why was a high-speed approach attempted on a slick runway? Why was an aging aircraft still in active service? Most painfully, why were slums allowed to exist in such close proximity to an international runway? Aviation experts quickly pointed out that this was not Lagos' first runway overshoot. In 2010, a domestic flight had skidded during rain, though with no fatalities. In 2018, international auditors raised concerns about drainage and runway overrun protection at Lagos Airport. Nothing substantial had changed. Meanwhile, the Okota slum, built illegally over time, had grown unchecked within 200 meters of the runway fence. Residents had warned of danger before. "We see planes every day," said a survivor. "Too low, too fast. We always feared this." Local activists blamed a culture of neglect, where the poor were invisible until tragedy struck. Satellite images confirmed what many already knew. The buffer zone between airport and neighborhood had all but vanished. The Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority (NCAA) launched an inquiry. Black box recorders were recovered and sent abroad for analysis. Preliminary findings pointed to human error, poor weather, delayed landing decision, and mechanical brake failure. But for victims, that wasn't enough. Protests erupted outside the Ministry of Aviation. Students, slum residents, and pilot unions marched with placards. "Our skies, our lives. Don't blame the rain. Neglect is violence." The grieving demanded not just answers, but change. International outlets picked up the story. The New York Times, Al Jazeera, and BBC Africa all ran special reports on the crash and on the unsafe coexistence of airports and slums in booming African cities. Beyond numbers, names, and headlines lay human stories. A 9-year-old girl, named Iniola, pulled from rubble with severe burns, asked a nurse, "Where's my brother?" Her brother had been playing near their home. He was found days later, beneath the wing. One of the surviving flight attendants, still in shock, gave a soft interview. "We were almost there. I saw the runway. Way. And then I remember nothing but screams." In hospitals, grief counselors and volunteers worked with survivors, but trauma lingered. Families refused to return to what was left of their homes. The smell of fuel and smoke persisted for days. For many, the crash wasn't just an interruption, it was a full stop. Under mounting pressure, the Nigerian government convened an emergency aviation safety summit. The president addressed the nation. "We mourn, we investigate, we will reform." A plan was announced: immediate relocation of residents within 500 meters of the runway. Installation of engineered material arrestor systems (EMAs) at both runway ends. Mandatory runway condition monitoring before landings. Retirement of aircraft. Older than 18 years still, skeptics abounded. Critics called it a political move, words after loss. But beneath the noise, real policy work had begun. By August 19th, exactly 1 month after the crash, a memorial service was held. At the edge of the Okota community, among blackened remains of homes, survivors gathered in silence. Names were read aloud. White candles flickered under the wind. A mural was painted by local artists, a jet in the sky, and underneath it, a city rising in memory. Victims' families formed the Flight 127 Coalition for Safe Skies, demanding permanent change in urban aviation planning. Their message: never again, not above our homes. In aviation circles, the crash of ND 127 became a case study. Pilots discussed it in training. Airports reviewed their layouts. Urban planners rethought buffer zones. But perhaps the most important lesson wasn't technical. It was ethical. The idea that air safety cannot be divorced from ground safety, that no child should grow up beneath a flight path without protection, that prosperity and poverty cannot share runways without consequence. Today, the planes still land in Lagos. The city still buzzes, breathes, and bustles. But near runway 18L, something has changed. A new fence stands taller, stronger. The slums have been pushed back. Not all approve, but most agree. Safety needed space. Yet for those who lost everything, no wall is high enough to block memory. No regulation can rebuild what was taken. And so they remember. They speak. They demand. Because in the sky's roar, there must also be a human voice, reminding us that safety is not just about altitude, it's about accountability. It was more than a crash. It was a reckoning. And the world is still listening.